Welcome, listeners, to a really mind-bending deep dive today. We're looking into human identity, biology. It gets pretty wild.
Yeah.
We're digging into a case called the chimeric father. 2 DNAs, 1 man. And our mission really is to try and wrap our heads around this incredibly rare phenomenon, prepare for a bit of an aha moment, maybe, because this whole thing kicks off with real bombshell. A man fails a paternity test, but the baby was absolutely his.
Yeah, it sounds completely impossible, doesn't it? You have this couple living in the U.S., and they go through all the normal steps.
Yeah.
Legal, medical paternity testing for their new baby boy. And the results, they come back saying the man, the presumed father, well, he isn't the biological parent.
Yeah, okay.
So they run it again, double-check everything, same result.
Yeah.
And the really key thing here, infidelity.
Yeah.
Absolutely not the issue. That wasn't the explanation.
Okay, so that just deepens the mystery, right? This isn't like relationship drama, it's something else, something biological. Inside the man himself, how do they figure out what was actually going on? This is where it gets really fascinating.
Well, they had to go deeper, much deeper genetic testing. And that revealed something, frankly, extraordinary. The man had 2 distinct sets of DNA.
2 sets, like completely different.
Completely different. Think of it like having 2 genetic fingerprints. So one set was in his blood cells, his cheek swabs, the usual places. That matched him. But the other set, totally different, was found only in his sperm.
Okay, wait, so his sperm had different DNA than his blood?
Exactly. And get this, the DNA in his sperm, it belonged to his unborn twin.
His twin.
Yes, a sibling who had died very early in the pregnancy, in the womb, but whose cells had essentially fused with his during development. He'd absorbed some of his twin's genetic material.
So he was, kind of a fusion of 2 individuals.
Yeah.
Wow, and there's a name for this, right, this condition?
Yes, there is. It's called chimerism.
Chimerism, okay.
And put simply, it happens when 2 separate embryos, each starting with its own unique DNA, merge together extremely early in pregnancy. Instead of developing into twins, they combine to form a single person. But that person carries cells from both original embryos.
So different parts of the body could have totally different DNA.
Precisely. Your blood might have one genetic code, but your liver, or in the case, the cells that produce sperm, could have another.
Yeah.
It's like 2 blueprints contributing to one building.
That is incredible. And the implications, not just for paternity, right? But for how we even think about ourselves. Because in this specific case, the father, he was technically his son's uncle, genetically speaking. Is that right?
That's exactly right. His sperm carried his absorbed twin's DNA. So he unknowingly fathered his child using, essentially, someone else's genetic material that was part of his own body. And it really makes you ask, doesn't it? We tend to think of our DNA as this absolute truth, our unique identifier, the unchangeable record of, But what if, in some cases, even DNA can tell, multiple stories? Or maybe even lie in the way we usually understand it.
It's just mind-boggling. If our basic biological blueprint isn't always straightforward, what does that mean? For identity? For, legal systems that rely on DNA? And you mentioned this isn't just about paternity tests. How else does chimerism show up? Are there other surprising ways?
Oh, definitely. It can manifest in all sorts of ways because, like we said, those different cell lines can end up in different tissues. So you might find human chimeras with 2 different blood types coexisting, or different DNA in skin cells versus internal organs. Sometimes there are subtle visible signs, maybe slight differences in skin pigmentation or eye color variations, maybe different hair and saliva DNA. But honestly, most people with chimerism probably never ever find out. It usually only comes to light if something specific happens, like a confusing medical test or, a failed paternity test like this one.
You mentioned another case earlier about a maternity test. That sounds just as startling. Can you tell us a bit more?
Yes, that was another fascinating one. A woman failed a maternity test, despite obviously having given birth to the children herself.
How is that even possible?
Well, her blood DNA didn't match her kids. It was baffling. But further investigation found that her ovaries carried a different set of DNA, the DNA of her vanished twin, while the rest of her body, including her blood, had her primary DNA. So her eggs, and therefore her children, carried her twin's genetic signature.
So genetically, she was their aunt.
Genetically speaking, yes. Even though she was undeniably their biological mother, it really highlights how complex these situations can be. And there are other scenarios too, like a man needing a kidney transplant. His siblings weren't a match, which was strange. Turned out his kidneys had developed from his twin cells, carrying different DNA, preventing a match with his own main genetic line.
Wow. So science doesn't even really know how common this is because most cases just fly under the radar.
Exactly. We only see the tip of the iceberg, the cases where something unusual brings it to attention. The true prevalence, it's likely higher than we realize.
So thinking about all this, what does it really mean for you listening right now?
Well, I think if you connect this to the bigger picture, cases like the chimeric father really force us to reconsider the very foundations of identity. What does it mean to be an individual? It shows us that sometimes, biologically speaking, you might not be entirely who you think you are. The lines can be blurrier than we imagine.
And in some incredibly rare instances, you might actually be carrying someone else entirely, living right inside you. A pretty profound thought to perhaps mull over until our next deep dive.